And as I like to say, speaking is all about risk management. And I certainly have a risk here to manage because I'm between us and the end of the function. So I'll keep my comments brief, but I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today, as membership is what the FTA is all about. And the messages that I want to bring across today tie into what we've heard today in regard to the Essential Treasurer, what we've heard today in terms of what the messages are, how we can think about taking what we know as corporate treasury professionals, taking value back to our organisations, and becoming, more strategic in terms of what we did. I've heard the message that that Bromland's put across before, and each time I sit back and I think, yes, that's that is where we need to be. That's what we need to be doing. And Graham's case study also reinforced that today. And I think it's a testimony to what we are trying to do as a membership, and it's also illustrative of what we're trying to do from the FTA perspective. As a good consultant, I always use the word journey, and I think we can say the FTA has also been on a journey for the past couple of years. And in regard to some of the topics that we've heard about today, we've really, I think, accelerated in terms of that journey, particularly in regard to what we're doing from an advocacy point of view, what we're doing to try and help the corporate treasury professional represent what our points are and what we're trying to do going forward. The FTA has a couple of key things that it does to create value for the membership. It puts on events like this. This is one of what I describe as our 4 pillars that we build our professional development program around. One of the key pillars happens in the 4th quarter, is the pillar that most people are aware of, and that's our Congress, which is in Sydney this year in late October. The technical program is virtually finalised. I think speakers are nearly all lined up, if I'm right, David? And it looks like to be like a good event, which the past couple of years has always been a challenge because each Congress, I think, has improved upon the last one. The other 2 pillars are our capital market update, which takes place in the 1st quarter, and in the 3rd quarter, which will be in August up in Sydney, is our fundamentals of Treasury operations, where we focus upon the engine room that drives what we do from a Treasury point of view in terms of our operational processes, Treasury systems, and other topics like that, and obviously the pillar that we're attending today, the Essential Treasurer. In terms of focusing upon these things, it's allowing us the capacity to be more strategic, to get in touch and be at the table with the C-level level of executives. And what we're trying to do from an FTA point of view, particularly on the advocacy point of view, is position the FTA to support you in terms of those efforts. Now, when I say support you, it's very much a symbiotic relationship. The membership helps us get on and do with what we're doing. If we don't have the support of members, and particularly some members who are very active, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And I want to highlight 3 particular activities that the FTA has been driving in the past 2 to 3 years that I think are good examples of how we've created value in the broader market from a corporate treasury point of view and positioning ourselves. We all saw in the paper yesterday, and we probably heard Mr. Murray talking in the news, and the broad findings from the initial report, I think it's described in terms of the Murray inquiries come out. We wanted to ensure that in terms of this financial system inquiry that we just were not bystanders in this process. We wanted to try and position ourselves that the corporate treasury profession had a voice, and some of the things that we're thinking about need to be done to further the financial markets to help us do what we need to do from a strategic point of view internally are addressed. To that means David and I, with the support of some other members, worked hard to see how we could position ourselves with the inquiry. And when we approached the inquiry and attended some roundtables, we were very pleasantly surprised when the inquiry leaders actually came back to both David and I at separate functions and asked us, how can, we'd like you to work with us in some way, how can we achieve that? we put our thinking caps on, and I'm very pleased to say, and we've announced this through David's regular updates, that we have a current FTA board member sitting and participating in the inquiry. Chris Walensky, ex-treasurer of QBE, and he's currently working with the inquiry, helping them sift through all of the information that we're doing and putting forward, the corporate treasury perspective. We then have the ability to get a perspective from Chris at Congress in terms of what's happening from an inquiry point of view. He will be very limited in what he can say at this stage, because the final, would the final report be out by then, David?
Unfortunately not.
It won't. It's 2 weeks later, so he will be. He'll have to be very circumstanced in what he says, but I think he will still be able to have an interesting discussion. So we're really pleased that we've pushed that forward. The next initiative I want to mention is the OTC derivatives, and we heard the speaker this morning from CBA talking about the impact of the OTC derivative regulations are going to have on us. And this has been coming for a little while, and if you look back over the past Congress programs, you'll see in the past 2 Congresses, or maybe even 3 Congresses, we've actually had a session focused upon this topic. We've also reached out and been reached out to by ASIC and the Treasury out of Canberra to get the views of what does corporate Australia think about the OTC regulations and what's coming. And so we've actively participated in round tables with them, given them our views. We've submitted, when the papers have come out to ask for submission, the FTA has put forward submissions which are on the website. And I would like to think that our active involvement has contributed to the position that we find ourselves in today, where potentially from a corporate treasury perspective, for corporates who are using derivatives as hedging instruments, that we may not have to do reporting within Australia, which is quite different than the scenario that you see happening in Europe, a little bit closer to what we see that's happening in the US. But I think it's an outcome that reflects what they're trying to achieve in terms of the OTC derivative regulations, and that is gain visibility of OTCs and where that can potentially create systemic risk. Because our view as an association is the using OTC derivatives to hedge transactions is not really going to cause systemic risk for the overall financial markets, given the volumes that we're doing and the manner in which we approach the market with our OTC derivatives. So seeing that requirement being taken away, that we don't have to do the reporting, we hope that will hold. I do think our regulators will be under a little bit of pressure from their international peers in regard to that, because we are slightly inconsistent. But we will see what happens from that point of view. The third topic that I want to bring to your attention and talk about what we've been working on is something that happened about 2.5 years ago. There was talk about the new accounting standard coming out. It was going to be embedded inside of IFRS 13, which was looking at how we report both assets, liabilities, and our derivative hedging transactions. We reached out to the International Accounting Standard Boards before they actually put out their paper in regard to hedge accounting, and highlighted what we thought were the critical issues with 139. Highlighting the issue in regard to options, highlighting the issue in regard to cross-currency interest rate swaps, being the 2 particular ones that we pushed. The response we got was very encouraging. The International Accounting Standard Board set up a couple of conference calls with us here in Australia to talk to corporate treasurers on what their views were about the accounting standards. And being a non-accounting body, I thought that was particularly pleasing. When they came down, or when they did their global roadshow, they asked us to sit down and have an actual lunchtime workshop with them. Not a presentation where we invite members in and they tell people what's going on. They actually wanted to sit down with us and discuss what was in the draft standard, and get our view in terms of what we thought that would mean from a hedging market point of view. So it just goes to show, when we put ourselves out there, we do have a voice. The only way we can do that is getting the support from the membership, and we believe this is a critical membership value going forward. So, my point here of walking you through these points is, I don't think we can take the attitude as being corporate treasurers or being professionals in the corporate treasury market that we can't influence the debate. We can influence the debate. we have that opportunity, and the best way for us to influence the debate is to work together through something like the FTA, because we get a little bit more weight in terms of our view. Individually, our organisations can be small, but together as one association, it really pushes that view across. In saying that, a couple other things I want to highlight in regard to the FTA. We've launched the Pathway membership. Hopefully you've seen the information on that. That's to encourage fresh people to the Treasury industry to join, encourages them to come to the fundamentals of Treasury risk management, which has been run in August, gives them a slight discount on membership for the first couple of years to encourage them to become active in the Treasury industry. And the other thing that we've got that we're working on, and we're hoping that we will have available by Congress, and then that will lead us on to the second phase, is our Treasury survey. It's been a couple of years since we did the last Treasury survey. I think it was 2011 was when we did the last Treasury survey. So we're hoping that we're going to get that up and off the ground. And in fact, David and I are talking about that this morning. So you'll see something soon asking you to participate. I please ask you to participate in the survey so we can pull together the results and provide them at Congress. But one thing that we're going to look to do in regard to the survey and take it one step further, and this is an initiative that was driven from our technical committee, is to develop a benchmarking tool. To develop a benchmarking tool based upon the survey, so that a corporate treasurer can go in to some piece of software, input what they're doing, and then they get a report coming back out of this software saying, this is where you sit versus your industry, versus your, versus all the other people that have participated in the survey. So you can benchmark. Then you can use that information to present to the board, where you want to take extra initiatives from a Treasury point of view, or you want to highlight, where you think you are good practice, or where you think you can pull your socks up a little bit more and look for support to do that by showing where you are versus the industry. I'm very excited about this initiative, and one of the reasons why I'm very excited about it is it's driven by members participating in the technical committee. This is not something that has been driven from a board level. The board is very enthusiastic about it, but it has been really driven by members coming through the technical committee and wanting to do something that improves the value proposition. You hear me use that word value proposition. It's absolutely critical we get the value proposition right, because otherwise, if we don't get that right, you won't be members. But the best way for us to get it right is to get the support and active participation of the members, and then we will create something that's of value going forward. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll hand back to David.